Okay, so let's dive into this. What happens when the very foundation of democracy starts to feel a little shaky? Today, we're taking a close look at the health of the rule of law and how the rise of populism is putting it to, well, maybe its most serious test in generations. And the stakes really could not be higher. This quote from constitutional law expert Jeffrey Jowell it's pretty chilling. He's saying the rule of law isn't just one big thing. It's made up of a bunch of different ingredients. And when you start taking them away one by one, what's left isn't just a hint of tyranny, you're basically looking at the blueprint for it. This warning really frames everything we're about to talk about. So what exactly is the rule of law? Well, the most crucial thing to get your head around is this difference between the rule of law and rule by law. See, any government, even a dictatorship, can rule by law. They just use laws as a tool for power. But the rule of law, that's a whole different level. It means the laws themselves have to be fair, they have to be just, and most importantly, they have to protect the fundamental rights of every single person. And that brings us right to the heart of this explainer. The rise of populism we've seen recently presents a direct challenge to that very foundation. So what does this threat actually look like in the real world? This slide just lays out that tension perfectly. Over on the left, you've got liberal democracy, which is all about checks and balances designed to limit any one group's power. But then, on the right, you have the populist viewpoint. And here, those exact same checks and balances, things like independent courts or a free press, are often spun as a conspiracy of elites that's trying to block the will of the people. A system that's built to protect minorities can suddenly find itself being used to demonize them. It's a total flip. And look, this isn't just some abstract theoretical debate. The source we're looking at points to two pretty alarming real-world examples from the UK. Back in 2020, a bill was introduced where the government actually admitted it was written to break international law on purpose. Then, in 2023, you have the Safety of Rwanda Act. The speaker calls parts of this constitutional heresies. And what that basically means is it ordered the courts to just accept something as a fact, whether it was actually true or not, which, well, that kind of undermines the entire point of having a court. And this quote, wow, it just brilliantly captures that sense of shock. The speaker, Richard Harmer, used this vivid analogy from Alice in Wonderland to describe how he felt. It wasn't like a small step off the path. It felt like a full-on, headfirst dive into a bizarre, upside-down world where all the established constitutional rules just didn't seem to apply anymore. So, if you've plunged through the looking glass into this bizarre new reality, how do you find your way back? Well, the speaker doesn't just point out the problem. He offers a way forward. It's all built on two really powerful ideas: restoration and resilience. So it's about how we fix what's broken and how we build it back even stronger than before. And this framework is broken down into a practical three-pillar plan. The first is all about rebuilding international leadership. The second focuses on strengthening our institutions right here at home. And the third, which, might just be the most important of all, is about promoting a public culture that actually understands and values the rule of law. Let's take a quick look at each one. Okay, diving into that first pillar, it really boils down to this: actions, not just words. This means things like unwavering support for the European Convention on Human Rights and the big international courts. But it also means pushing for reform, trying to make global bodies like the UN Security Council more representative. The whole idea is to rebuild trust by showing the world that the UK can be counted on to play by the rules. Right. The second pillar looks inward, at the balance of power right here at home. And as you can see, the argument is that this balance is kind of out of whack. The big concern is that power has shifted way too much towards government ministers and away from parliament. This happens when they use what are called delegated powers. You can think of them as legal shortcuts to make rules without all the usual debate and scrutiny a normal law gets. And that trend, well, it weakens a really vital check on government power. And this brings us to that final and maybe most critical pillar. This is the one that connects all these big constitutional ideas directly to our everyday lives. It's all about public understanding, getting that public buy-in. Which, of course, leads to the million-dollar question. I mean, the rule of law can sound so abstract, right? Like something for lawyers and academics to worry about. So how in the world do you make it matter to everybody? How do you connect it to people's actual lives and concerns? Well, the speaker has some really practical ideas. It starts in schools with better citizenship education. It means making that direct link between the rule of law and the economy, literally showing how it affects the pound in their pockets because it creates a stable, trustworthy country for businesses. It also means we should be proudly telling the story of human rights as a British invention, from the Magna Carta all the way up to today, and actively fighting the lies and disinformation that try to tear it down. At the end of the day, the message is one of determined hope. The speaker brings up this famous quote to frame the whole fight for the rule of law as a long-term project. It's a great reminder that building a truly just society is never quick. It's never easy, but it's a struggle guided by this powerful belief that the arc of history does, eventually, bend towards justice. So, we'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. After looking at all the challenges and the potential solutions, this question is still hanging in the air. Who is ultimately responsible for defending these principles? Is this something we just leave to the politicians and the lawyers? Or is creating a culture that truly values the rule of law a responsibility that actually falls on every single one of us?